the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day.
Yo, Flovs, what's up? It's good to see you all here. Thank you all for coming. Glad you could make it. It's going to be an exciting evening streaming. We got a special guest tonight, Sleeping Warrior, coming to chat about gravity. So I think that's going to be a nice, productive evening. A great hour to spend talking about gravity. How are you doing, Sleeping Warrior? I think he's muted still. But anyway, we also got Michael Khan and PJ Cruikshank in. How are you guys doing?
Hello. No, I'm good. I was going to say, he's talking about gravity. What's gravity? Is that thing? It's a force, not a force, but acts like a force, and the glue, the adhesive that bonds the whole of their worlds together.
No, that's not gravity. Gravity is just a load of sums, calculations, formulas. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. And we just got William in. How's it going, Just Bill?
Hello, everyone.
I was just going to say I come out in twice.
Oh, wow, he's got. Nice to have him, dude.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you guys. Sorry, before we start, I just want to quickly say hi to everyone in the chat. Sean Hawkins is obviously not here anymore because he's pissed off. I showed him manipulating the width of the image and not the height, so making it fit. In other words, dishonesty. Well done, Sean. Michael Carnan, thank you for coming. The Real Deal Bobby, which is already gone, thank you for coming. Charlie Walsh, hello. Mr. 42, what's up? Robert D, good to see you. Ryan S, hello. Cygnus Step, thank you for coming. Victor Kroot, always good to see you too. PJ Cruikshank, hello. I think that's practically everybody I saw. Oh, Phantom Plane, thank you for coming. Good to see you too. Jeff Conkel, happy birthday to Jeff. It's his birthday today, guys. So
happy birthday, Jeff.
Happy birthday to you. Many blessings. And sorry to tell you, mate, you're sharing a birthday with Luch. Happy birthday, Luch, as well. You know, the Luch guy that came and talked about gravity last time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's his birthday as well today, so happy birthday to him too. Shout out to you guys, and I hope you have an awesome birthday and a blessed birthday further. Who else we got in? We got Robert D, thank you for coming. I saw more people. Purulan Purula, thank you for coming, which is no longer available, I see. Thank you for being here and going, I guess. Jeff Gassed, what's up, man? Good to see you too. Thank you for being here. Pierre Montpella, good to see you. Glad you could make it. I think that's about everybody. Anyway, yeah. And Don Logan, thank you for coming. He wouldn't like it if I didn't say hello to him. Then his wife can't laugh. And I will not get the jab. What's up, man? Great to have you in too. Glad you could make it. I think that's everybody. Wow. Okay. Yeah, and Price of Adam and Expedition Truth. What's up? And Sovereign Soul Unchained. Glad to have you as well. And here we go again. Glad to have you in too. Okay. And William Brackley. Okay. And Flatland. Okay, guys. Crazy, yeah. But it's good to see you more. If you guys haven't already, please hit that like button, share the show. It really does help to get out to a further audience. And then the vote so far is gravity is a force. 20% say yes, and no 81%. It's changing. Yeah, whoever said yes, obviously you don't know what gravity is. Congratulations. Yeah, so I'm gonna head it off to Sleeping Warrior and we can start this conversation.
Where do you start? I mean, quintessentially, when you come to this topic, there's 1,000,001 questions that you start asking, and one of them, you can't avoid gravity, right? You can't get around a topic without coming across the gravity argument. It's intrinsic in their arguments. It's fundamental. If gravity doesn't exist or it's not a force, well, that's their model debunked. But the problem with the whole topic of gravity, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. It doesn't matter whether we talk to the ball earthers or not. I don't think we should speak to them anymore. I don't think there's any value in it because you get the likes of Fight the Flat Earth, who apparently now wants to debate me. There is no debate, Craig. What it is, Craig, you just want to tell people that gravity causes a force and it doesn't. You want to tell people that you won and that I'm stupid and you didn't and I'm not. And what you don't want to be able to do is accept the truth. And the truth, as per science, is that in a nutshell, gravity is nothing more than a bit of refraction. We all know what refraction is. We all know that when you look at the horizon, you see boats doing all sorts of weird things. They stretch, they shrink, they move physical positions. We know that they're not doing all of these movements, but that's the way it presents itself to us. And we all know that it's caused by the medium that we're looking through. Well, that's basically what gravity is. When you're looking at a celestial object, let's just say, I don't know, Polaris, Venus, anything in the sky. Imagine that you're looking at the horizon and that star that you're looking at is actually a boat. And you're seeing it moving up and down, you're seeing it getting fatter and thinner, breathing, you're seeing it do all sorts of things, but it's a visual phenomena. It's a visual phenomenon. It's not an actual thing that's happening. Obviously, it's not doing all of these things. But when we compare it to a boat on the horizon or a building or whatever, and we see, like looking at Skunk Bay, we can see that those things get stretchy, shrinky, moving up and down. We know they're not doing that. It's the same with these observations and the definition of gravity. But Craig doesn't want to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's no point talking to Craig because all he wants to say is that gravity creates a force and that he's right, you're wrong, and basically get super chats for doing it.
Yeah.
All you're doing is lying to people for super chats, Craig. There is no conversation. There is no debate. It's not an agree to disagree topic. It's literally, you just don't understand the current position of science.
Mm-hmm.
Yet you claim to people that you got a physics degree. And if that's true, you would have been taught that gravity is not a force. So you can only conclude reasonably that because you keep telling people that gravity creates a force when it doesn't, the only conclusion you can come to is that you either were asleep that day when you did the topic on gravity, or you never even went. It has to be the case that you've not got a physics degree, Craig. Because if you did get a physics degree at undergrad level, you would have been told this. You wouldn't be able to maintain your position right now on this topic.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to get any points to actually pass if he went along the lines of gravity's a force. They would fail him.
It is outrageous.
Uh-huh.
How do I screen share on this?
There's a block in the bottom, like a little toggle screen share. You can see. You can just
it's
click
got an
that.
arrow. It's a box with an arrow in.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the reason why it ends up coming gravity creates gravity.
Yeah.
Because it's so stupid, and when you talk it back to them, you converse back to them, so you're saying gravity creates gravity, they say no because it sounds so stupid. Yeah, exactly, because it is so stupid. Yeah, we can see on screen, yeah.
You can see history of gravity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that these two documents that I'm going to take you through now, if you know these exist, you can reference them all the time until such time that the ball earthers get on top of it and basically get them to change it to suit their nonsense, which they're never really going to be able to do, because the current position in physics is not the way that Craig says. Craig will have people. I had it with Glober's mom recently. She's trying to explain to me that submarines use I can't remember exactly how she worded it, but it was words to the effect of submarines use gravity to navigate or something along those lines.
You see, this is the thing that I was debating with Craig as well. They use the type of gravimeter, but I brought up a citation where it shows this gravimeter is only used in conjunction with the mapping. So it can't pick up any icebergs or whales or submarines or anything. The only way it can pick up a submarine, for instance, if it's right next to it, because then it picks up the frequencies because of the densities.
Yeah,
it works on density. Even that citation said it works on the density.
Yeah, I mean, I've been spending a lot of time reading about that. The Titan, that submersible that crashed or imploded. I was reading a lot about how, and it doesn't matter what your view is on it, but I think we all accept that it went missing, and it's like instantaneously imploded, and they've all died. They brought up lots of bits and pieces, but the big piece that they're missing is the carbon fiber hull, the main part of the boat. Now, the argument was that you can't make it out of carbon fiber because if it was to ever implode, it'd shatter. Plus, it doesn't marry up to titanium very well, and it's only got a limited life cycle. It's got a certain amount of pressure cycles before it becomes useless. And the question obviously then is, well, how many cycles has it got? And the answer is, well, they don't know because he never did it. He didn't do the testing. Why? He built one and it worked once, and then it worked again a second time, and it gradually got worse. And it got to the point where it was making so many noises that like passengers were reporting it, and he ignored it. And ultimately, he was so caught up in his own fantasticness, his own self-belief. He was showing Dunning-Kruger. He was trying to convince himself and rub that convincing of himself off onto others in return for money or fame or stature or whatever. But one of the things that was mentioned in that in the creation of that submarine was the strength of the carbon fiber. And ultimately, the argument was it isn't strong enough when it's got pressure pressing on it. It's strong when it's trying to hold in a force from the inside and it's pushing out. But when it's holding one out from the outside going in, it's not the same. It's the opposite. And he didn't accept it. And I was trying to find a particular scene where he basically argued that, well, he basically said, I've done the maths. Now, obviously, a lot of people in this topic will substitute mathematics for experiment at any opportunity, particularly where they don't have any science. But he's a really good person to cite when he says, I can't find it now. I think YouTube might have scrubbed it, but he said something along the lines of, when he was being questioned on the perceived safety of titanium marrying up to carbon fiber, he said words to the effect of, look, I've done the maths. This stuff's much stronger than whatever it was he was comparing it to. But the key point was that he's done the maths. And I was like, all we need to do every time that these idiots start calculating, instead, because obviously when ball earthers calculate the force of gravity, it's because they've got no experiments to demonstrate it. They're applying Newton's second law of motion in lieu of his first. Newton says, well, you can calculate the force with F equals ma. But they ignore, as to get the thing to accelerate in the first place, you've got to have a force. So what they do is substitute the having of a force with the calculation of a force, and then all of a sudden you've got gravity. Well, if that was really the case, they should be calculating how much acceleration there are of boats on the horizon when they start moving up and down, because that's what you would need to be measuring and then calculating to measure the force that's being applied against boats that seem to be moving up and down at the horizon. And nobody ever does that. When we're talking about boats at the horizon, we don't talk about boats as forces measured in newtons, because we accept it's an optical phenomenon. But when we're talking about stars, they want to start applying forces to these accelerations that they see in the sky. Because ultimately, they need that acceleration. They need to be able to calculate a force into existence because they need to carry on that delusion. What I'm going to show you here is just two documents. It won't take long, and it's all you need to know. Every ball earther will hate these two documents, and they will try and do everything possible to get rid of them because it really destroys their nonsense. And they rely on your ignorance as a flirt to not get yourself out of these holes that they try and put you in. If you know these documents exist, and there's two different citations for them, so it's not my interpretation of, it's not my point, it's not my claim. This is the science. This is the current position in physics. If you know they exist, you can take yourself through them at your own will. And ultimately, bottom line is, what I'm about to tell you, we can do it in 10 minutes, but it will save you all sorts of wrangling and arguing with idiots that keep trying to say things like gravity creates a force. It doesn't. You just don't know your stuff.
Exactly.
You don't know your current physics. You don't know the science. All you're doing is deceiving people with pseudoscience that you're passing off to be science. You are a pseudoscientist, Craig. There is no point debating you, and you're going to have to debunk what I'm about to go through. And then you don't even have to. You can do a rebuttal video if you want. I don't care. This is the current position. I don't care if you agree. I don't care if you want to do a hate video. I don't care if you send pizzas to my house. What matters is lying to people. So let's just go through it. If you know these two documents exist, and all you do is go through.
Bring the fire.
You go to your favorite search engine and you type in chronology of gravity, and you'll get all the YouTube videos. Ignore them because they're written by people like Fight the Flat Earth, and some of them will be. Basically, if you can't persuade people, bullshit them. That's what YouTube's doing. It's bullshitting people because they can't persuade them that the current position is true, is what we're about to talk about. But we're going to go through 2 documents, and all you do is type in chronology of gravity, hit enter, ignore YouTube at the top. You've got this top one, which when you click on it, it opens up this one, which has got a lovely cartoon. This is aimed at children, right? But it makes the point. And if children are able to understand this, and if you get your head around it, then it destroys the adults. The children can destroy the adults very easily just by understanding it. If we go back to the other document that you can find, it's Wikipedia. Now, I hate Wikipedia for precision, but I do like it with respect to this. Look at the comprehension detail, or the comprehensive detail that's in this. It talks about everything that we need to know. Now, there's a lot of what they're doing in this article is they are overcomplicating it so that you lose stuff in the detail. But if you understand where the 3 points are to look at, all of this stuff that you're talking about that they're showing here, although it looks overwhelming initially, if you know what you're looking at, it's very, very quick and easy to get through. And it's basically three dates. That's all you need to know. So we'll start with this one first because I've got it on the screen. Basically, what we're looking for, obviously, we all know about Newtonian gravitation, right? And in this document, you can find the Newtonian gravitation link. Newton, basically, you got all the stuff about Newton here in this area here, and you can see that the Principia, as it's pronounced by some people, doesn't matter what, the Principia is here. Obviously, this position has been superseded.
Wait. I have to stop you. Principia. Just joking.
Yeah. Whatever. Principia, whatever. But bottom line, this has been replaced. It's been superseded. It's been debunked. It's not been refined. It's not been added to. It's fundamentally been changed. Now, you can read about this yourself, but this is obviously the starting point, and this is all that ball earthers. They stop here. This is where they stop. But look at all this development since then that they're ignoring by stopping at that point. This is tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of ignorance that they're applying.
That's the thing about anti-flat earthers. They get only to the point that they want to have their answer, their point. Yeah. So they're very biased. So they stop at cherry picking a certain piece, and that's it. They won't go further. That's why when you start talking about entropic gravity or quantum gravity and stuff like that, they don't want to hear it. They only want to keep to Newtonian, because to them that is the be all. Yeah, so they're stuck in the 18th century.
Glober's mum literally admitted it to me recently. She basically said, she said that she agreed with George Moose's words, and we all know George Moose's words. Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force, and we must think of Newtonian gravitation as a force. That doesn't mean it really is a force, but we don't work at the really is level. Well, then that begs the question of, what level are you working at if you're supposed to be a scientist, if you're supposed to be an astronomer? What level are you working at if we don't have to work at the really is level? That's a rhetorical question.
Yeah, then it's not science.
Exactly. What level is he applying if it's not the really is level? Because we want to know this stuff, right?
I mean,
but, you can see here.
Yeah, I mean, with science, you need it to be at the really is level because you have to physically manipulate the independent variable. Otherwise, it can't be science.
Of course. Look at the gap in the end of work, 1680, pretty much. And then we have Henry Cavendish. That's 100 years after his death. It's not a coincidence that the Cavendish experiment is 100 years after his death, when you know that Newton said, "I find no hypothesis for gravitation as a force." He knew it wasn't a force. Ultimately, what they've done is misrepresented him on his death. They couldn't do it while he was alive. They had to do it whilst he was dead, because he didn't want gravitation as a force inherent to matter to be pinned on him, and that's exactly what they did. That's why it's 100 years later.
Yeah, but even with Cavendish, he wasn't trying to measure a force of acceleration. He was trying to calculate Earth's density. So they totally took that out of proportion. Say, see, he invertedly measured Earth's gravitational force of attraction, which is false.
Yeah, ultimately it says that he's trying to test the value for the gravitational constant and
Yeah.
the mean density of Earth. Mm-hmm. How? I mean, we all know what density is.
Yes.
What is he whatever he's calculating with the so-called mean density of Earth? I'd love to know. I'd love for somebody to explain it to me, because I don't understand how it works on a flat plane or on a ball. What is the mean density of the Earth? Well, first of all, you'd have to know how big it was in it overall, wouldn't you? You couldn't do that based on.
You need the radius.
You need to know mass per unit volume. Unless you know that, then what are you actually measuring, calculating? What are you doing? It doesn't say that in the article if you've ever tried to read it. But anyway, so 100 years after Newton, right? Then we go to 1915. This is the third key date, right? 1915, Albert Einstein completes his theory of general relativity. He explains the perihelion of Mercury and calculates the gravitational lensing correctly, and introduces the post-Newtonian approximation. Feel free to read about this, but this is like the third, or the second key part. And then there's more stuff that goes on. But then look at what happens in the 1920s. We start getting into quantum gravitation, which this is what Craig's kind of alluring to. When Craig says gravity causes a force, he's kind of skating on the edge of this. He doesn't want to get into it in too much depth because it debunks Newtonian gravitation. The claim of quantum gravitation is that it basically corrects Einstein's nonsense. Now, whether it does that or not isn't important. What matters is they do claim, quantum mechanics does claim that Einstein is wrong and that quantum gravitation is correct. Now, it doesn't matter from our perspective whether it is or not, but you just need to be aware that not everybody in current science agrees with Einstein. Nobody agrees with Newton anymore. Most people tend to lean towards Einstein, but quantum mechanics claimed a victory over Einstein in the 1920s. But quantum gravitation didn't really sound that good. It didn't get promoted as much by the science, like publication device or process. So it was very much pie in the sky, and it was mainly because Einstein, although he got his if you look in 1915, you'll see that it's not even on here. No, it was 1919. There it is. In 1919, the Eddington observation was basically looking at a star from behind the sun that was behind the sun during an eclipse, and he claimed that it was in a different position. It was displaced. It doesn't matter by how much. It doesn't matter how close or inaccurate he was relative to Newton. It just matters that the conclusion of it was that people said, "Oh, Einstein was more accurate than Newton, therefore he must be more accurate. Therefore we'll go with it." But from our perspective, we don't care. But what matters is that.
But I mean, this is like I was saying. So, because someone can do a prophecy and that prophecy comes true, does that mean they did science? Because they made a prediction. Because they did a prediction.
No, but you need to be aware of it, because what it does is it sets the cornerstone or the groundstone or the groundwork for the idea that things in the distance can be displaced by giant masses like the sun.
Yeah.
And it's minuscule. I mean, I could literally say.
And it's still just circular reasoning, because they didn't manipulate anything. They just observed what they think is gravitational lensing and calling it gravitation. So therefore, Einstein was correct. Which it's just circular reasoning. I mean, I can say it was fairy dust that caused it. Does that mean now that's fairy dust that caused it?
That's what I was going to say. I could equally argue that it was the flexation of the dome that's over our heads that was causing the apparent displacement, and it had nothing to do with what they say. And they're both equally valid, but one is arguably ridiculous, depending on which side of the fence you're on. But the point is, they've still got the same value in terms of validity. They're both equally as valid or as invalid as each other. So whether or not the stars are being displaced by the dome flex is irrelevant. They're both baseless assertions that can't be proven either way. But this is what they were going with at the time. Einstein seemed to be more accurate with his calculations. Newton also made the same prediction, but it was of a bigger effect. But the overall point was Einstein was considered to be correct in 1919 with this Eddington observation. This is what gravity is.
And now they're pushing him out because of quantum gravity.
Yeah. Well, they pushed him out in 1923, but the point here is that because gravity was described in 1919 as the warping of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass, you're seeing that displacement. So when you hear the word Eddington, you want to compare and contrast it with like Skunk Bay because they're an equivalence. You're looking through a medium at something and it appears to be moving when it's not actually moving at all. Now, this is what Craig flutters with. He goes, gravity creates force. It doesn't. Because the thing that you're looking at, in this case, the star behind the sun, it might have moved a midge's dick. But overall, it was minuscule and you have no way of knowing what was causing it if it was even happening at all. Now, at the end of the day, from our perspective, it does not matter. But from the ball earthers' perspective, it's a fundamental change in their position. Because the fundamental change is that mass is attracting mass, and it doesn't affect light because light's a massless particle, but it was affecting light. So here you've got a direct contradiction from Newtonian gravitation, and that contradiction basically never gets brought up because when we're talking about it, we assume that they know about it, but I realize that they don't know about this at all. Light's a massless particle by definition. Now, I don't want to get into whether it's a photon or I don't want to do the buckyballs thing. I just want to point out the current position in science defines light as to be a massless particle, right? Now, if it's a massless particle, then the effect of giant masses near it shouldn't cause any effect. But it did cause an effect.
Yeah,
now
how
they
can
say
it cause an effect if it's massless? Exactly.
It's contradiction in terms. Obviously, it means that somebody's wrong along the way. It doesn't matter by how much. Just be aware that that's what the argument is. Light's not meant to be affected by it. And then they say, oh, well, actually, it does affect it a little bit. And then you go, well, how does it do that if it's a massless particle? And they start talking about all sorts of nonsense. But the reality is, whatever the light may or may not be doing, yeah, it seems to be caused by the sun, but they haven't got a logical explanation for it, and it's contradictory. Because if it's a massless particle, it can't be affected by the giant effect of the sun. But it seems to be, and who are we to question it? But it's a contradiction on their model, right? It doesn't work. Anyway, so 1919, so this establishes the notion that something's moving. Now, it appears to be moving, but it's not actually moving. Now, if Craig's current position was correct, and that gravity created a force, we would be calculating the force that was necessary to create the movement of the star caused by the sun. And we would be measuring or calculating that using Newtons. We would not be measuring it in terms of arc seconds, minutes, and like fractions of seconds. We would be measuring it in Newtons because Newtons are a force, according to them. But we don't do that. We go, oh, look, it's moving, and then we start calculating all sorts of other things instead. But if gravity really was a force, or it caused a force, you would be measuring the acceleration of the thing in question, and you would be applying the unit of newtons to it, because newtons are a force, and that. But we don't. We talk about it in arc seconds, arc minutes, fractions of seconds.
Which is optical.
It's a fundamental. Yeah, it's a totally optical phenomena. It is refraction. When they say gravity, you should be thinking refraction. Because that's all it is. Something appears to be moving a little tiny bit, and that's supposed to be proof of the bending of space-time caused by the uneven distribution of mass, which is the definition that they never want to give. They never want to define gravity. They just want to assume it. But bottom line is, if they can't define it, they won't apply it. It's on screen for you now. You can see it, and you can go back to this document at any time you want to and basically understand it and cross-reference anything I say. But now that you know it's there, it's very easy for us to be able to get around this topic, this nonsense. Moving forward to the 1920s, it starts talking about quantum. Doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. It just matters that it's contradictory to Einstein. But be aware that Einstein predicted gravitational waves. He predicted them.
We just got to quickly correct Sean Hawkins says, but Sleepy, we do measure in newtons. Did you know that? No, you don't measure the planets and things in newtons, mate. Didn't you know this?
No. Nobody's ever measured the apparent acceleration of any object towards the horizon or in the night sky and described it with reference to newtons. Nobody's ever done that. When we describe the apparent orbits of Mercury and the apparent retrograde motion, they don't talk about it in forces. They don't talk about it as, well, look, it's got newtons going in this direction and then newtons going back in this direction, which is when they're referencing the apparent retrograde motion. They talk about it in terms of how many arc seconds it should be in front and how many arc seconds it should be behind. And they come up with formulas and models for why they think it's doing this. And bottom line is, we're not talking about forces. But when we're talking about apparent accelerations or like gravity causing forces, you should be referencing these things with newtons, because it is newtons that you will be talking about if it were forces that we were talking about. But we're not talking about forces because we're not talking about newtons. We're talking about accelerations that are optical phenomena, and we're not talking in the unit of newtons. We're talking in the units of basically time, isn't it? It's arc seconds, arc minutes, fractions of arc seconds. We're talking in terms of how many degrees something moves. But that's not a force, is it? It's not a newton. It's not a force. It's just something moving in the sky.
Yeah.
So what? That doesn't mean gravity causes a force. Because if it did, we would be talking about how many newtons it's pushing one way and how many newtons it's pushing the other way when referencing apparent retrograde motion. And we don't do that. Nobody does that. It's complete and utter codswallop. So gravity does not cause a force. It doesn't. It's just bullshit. There is no citations that says that. No physicist anywhere says that. Craig's made that up. And he's only made it up so that he can preach it, and at the end of the conversation he can say that he's won and you've lost, and that you're stupid, and that he's intelligent because he's got a degree in physics. But the simple fact is, if he's not able to do that, and I've got the one-way freedom to speak like I am now, you don't even need to speak to Craig. You don't even need him in the room. You don't need to answer any of his nonsense. He just doesn't understand his nonsense, and he's pushing it because he needs to. Now, remember, Einstein predicted gravitational lensing, right? Gravitational waves, gravitational lensing, and LIGO is going to come up in a bit. But from the perspective of gravity, right, you can skip through all of this stuff towards the end of the 1900s until you get to the 1990s, right? Because basically, Einstein predicted that gravitational waves would be detected, but that they didn't have the technology to detect them at that time. Well, I could make a prediction that relative density detectors would detect relative density, but that we don't have the technology to do it. And eventually, somebody's going to come up with some other device and say, "Oh, look, we've measured the changes in density causing acceleration, and that'll be called a relative densometer." I used to say it wouldn't, but the point is, Einstein made a prediction that gravitational waves would be discovered. And you can see in the 1990s, it starts talking about gravitational waves and LIGO. And if you look into LIGO and you look at how much money the American taxpayer has spent on it, it's billions. It's literally billions. There would be no world poverty if LIGO wasn't invented. And they put that money to something else, something actually that benefited humanity. If they put it to feeding the poor, 1.1 billion was the initial outlay for LIGO in its first construction. It's had numerous upgrades since then, and we're talking like it's 2 billion now, getting towards 3 billion US tax dollars, right, on LIGO, and it's supposed to detect gravitational waves. It doesn't matter from our perspective whether gravitational waves exist or not. They may have detected something, and they may well call it gravitational waves. But unless they can give that thing that causes it a bit of a wiggle to prove that it is the thing that they're manipulating, to prove that it is the thing that they're measuring, then all it is you're measuring something in the same way that an accelerometer measures something. And like Bob Nodell found out, he has no idea of what it was measuring. And it caused him all sorts of embarrassment because he said something like, "Oh yeah, it was measuring an acceleration, and obviously we couldn't accept that, could we?" It made Bob Nodell look completely dishonest by saying what he did. The reality is, Bob Nodell measured something, but he hasn't got a clue what he was measuring. He calls it ether. He can call it anything he wants. He can call it Antonio gravitation.
That's why he sat in the position he did, because he ended up doing the same what the ballers do, making a claim and not actually being able to back this claim up. You know, just making a declaration, in other words, and then you held to that declaration, and that's why he failed.
What Bob should have done, he should have said, it did measure something, but we haven't got a clue what it's measuring. And then somebody would say, well, isn't it the thing that they claim it's measuring? And then he could have started opening up with, well, scientifically speaking, we are getting some kind of positive or negative readings, and we're not able to manipulate that presumed cause. So we don't know what it is that's measuring it. But what he actually said was ether. That was his correction. He actually corrected it with ether. Now, obviously, the correction never made it to the telly. It never made it to mainstream. But Bob's going to be basically remembered for proving that the Earth's got gravitational acceleration. That's how he's going to be remembered as per television. But you and I both know that like everything that television tells you is you take it with a pinch of salt because they're not telling you the truth. Whether you agree or disagree with like the Israel-Palestine argument and fighting that's going on right now, whatever side you take with that, whatever you see on the news, It's usually propaganda to make you think a particular way, depending on what your state, your country that you're in, what their political opinions are, what their religious opinions are, whether they're pro this side or pro that side, and they'll feed you the bullshit that they want you to believe that is true, regardless of how true it actually is. They might show you the 1% that supports their narrative and ignore the 99% that don't. And if you only see that 1%, you don't know the 99% exists. What are you going to think? You're going to think the 1% argument's true because you saw it on Sky News. Well, that's the same problem that Bob's got. Everybody thought, or everybody sees Bob as a particular way, and they're not going to present the actual correction that Bob made. And Bob's correction shouldn't really be presented because it makes it worse for him. But if they'd have said Bob did later change his position, and he said this instead, and this was the reason why it was getting beatings or whatever, at least that would be honest. But it makes it worse for Bob because he didn't know what he was measuring. The claim is that the interferometers, Bob used a ring laser, a fiber optic gyro, which measures the diffraction of light.
But you know what was funny? But you know what's funny with that fog, though? If you saw when he was like showing it to Nathan Thompson, it wasn't even bolted down, and the fog needs to be bolted down so it can keep both the references equal. And he was moving it freely in all the directions, not bolted down. How do you know how accurate that thing is? I mean, you need to calibrate it.
The problem is, if you're in the same room as one of those things, you're creating heat, and the heat is moving the air around the room.
Exactly.
And the air causes refraction, because if you've got more dense air passing over the lighting setup that's inside that fog, if you've got more dense and less dense air moving around, you're going to get accelerations. You're not supposed to be in the room. It really should be done in a vacuum, as some people would argue, because then you're removing one of the major variables, which is the same variable that they had in the Cavendish nonsense, which we won't go into. But the point is, Einstein made predictions of gravitational waves. They started building LIGO. They spent billions on it, literally billions of taxpayers' money. Like three, I'll round it up to three. It may be more. I don't know exactly, but you can research it yourself. $3 billion. That is a huge amount of money for what? What are they trying to achieve? Well, they've proved that gravitational lenses and gravitational waves apply, Riley. All right. Well, what's a gravitational wave? Ripples in the medium of space-time. That's what it is. Well, we can see that there's ripples in something that we're looking at because things are moving when they're not actually moving. It's almost as if gravity's creating a force, but we know it's not creating a force. It's the medium doing whatever's doing. Now, it's the medium it's measuring, but they call it space-time. But in real terms, it's actually the medium that we are in that they're measuring, the air that we are in. It's measuring some ripples in that medium, because even though it's a vacuum, it's still subject to pressure and temperature changes. It's still subject to microscopic amounts of movement.
Yeah.
Who knows what they're measuring?
Exactly.
But they insist it's gravitation. And this is all basically to push Einstein, because if gravitational waves do exist, Einstein was correct. Quantum mechanics is wrong. So it's to push Einstein. But if you give quantum mechanics all the funding that Einstein had, quantum mechanics would be much more interesting. But it's quite dry because it's very simplistic. It's simplistic in the sense that it doesn't need a lot of money going to it. But there's no panache to that. There's no glitter and ball to that. It's just unattractive.
Yeah.
But space-time, that sounds attractive. Let's give them all the money they want. It'll push some nonsense,
and
right?
That's the problem. Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. Yeah, and I mean you can't. How can I put it? Space and time are just man-made concepts. This is the same thing I was talking with that other guy last time that came on my channel, the Grayson guy, where I was trying to explain to him, touch time for me, touch space. You can't. Space is just availability of something. Time is just a man-made reference so we can have a reference for order in everything. That's all. It's both man-made. There's no physicality towards it. You can't physically manipulate the reference of time. You can't physically manipulate space. The only thing you can do is full availability. That's it.
Time's a human man-made construct, isn't it?
Exactly.
We create time. We use it like the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun to give us our parameters for what we call day and night. We have a calendar. I don't know how they worked out the calendars, but it's a repetition of a cycle. Bottom line is we created the convention that we use called time in the same way that we created the convention that we call up and down, left and right, the directions that are relative to humans, but only to humans. Fish don't know what up and down is. Fish know what temperature up and down is. They know what pressure up and down is, but they don't know what up and down is on their own because they have no idea of the concept of up and down. They just know that their environment involves pressure variations, temperature variations, oxygenation of the water levels varying, all them kind of things.
Yeah.
But if you told a fish to swim down to the bottom, he wouldn't know what the hell you're talking about because up and down are not phrases that fishes use.
Yeah.
Well, we have a convention called time, we have a convention called direction, and ultimately the man-made constructs.
Exactly.
I've got a construct. I've got a man-made construct behind my wardrobe called Narnia, and if you open that wardrobe at 9 o'clock every night, you can go into it, and in that construct, you can do anything you want. You can float. You can drop. You can be anything you want to be. You can be Sean Hawkins in Narnia if you want.
Yeah, but you see, space-time. Sean Hawkins thinks it's space-time is not space and time. Yes, space-time is space and time on an X and Y graph. That's what space and time is. It's literally just the bending of the two. How can I put it? Coordinates. Yeah, the coordinates. It's the bending of coordinates.
It's the bending of the X and the bending of the Y coordinates.
Yeah,
That's why these idiot ball earthers will argue that the surface of a sphere is a two-dimensional object, because that's only true if you curve the X-axis and you curve the Y-axis, then it's true. But axes are not like show me anybody that's ever used a graph with like bending axes on them. There is no such thing. All you're doing is perverting Euclidean geometry to suit your delusion. If you maintain Euclidean geometry, which is the real geometry, the only geometry that actually works in any part of life, then you cannot get to any part of the surface of a sphere using two axes. You need three.
That's why
X, Y, and Z.
And that's why they move over to the metric tensors with general relativity, because they need as much axis as possible to warp the fabric of space and time, you could say. That's why at the end of the day, even according to Einstein, space-time is a flat piece of fabric.
Yeah. Now,
Don't get a grip of your emotions. You've got to start crying soon, mate.
So we've just been through the Wikipedia chronology of it, right? I want to go to the other one that I brought up earlier on, which is this one. This is the one that's aimed at kids. This is the one that will resonate with most adults because it's so simple. But when you realise what's written in here, it totally devastates the arguments that like Newtonian gravitation is a force. It destroys the nonsense that Craig Fight the Flat Earth argues that gravity creates a force. It doesn't. It destroys the nonsense about submarines using gravimeters or whatever nonsense that they don't. Literally, this destroys everything. But instead of it being text heavy like it was on Wikipedia with the hard raw data, this is like pictorial. So it's aimed at like Sean. This is for you, Sean. So pretty pictures, straightforward, but it makes the exact same point. And basically, what we can see here is we can see Newtonian gravitation produces his Principia, whatever, given a comprehensive account of gravity, toolbox, blah blah blah, and then it's up like there's a nice pretty picture for you. So that, and we know that that's basically been superseded by Einstein because we've just been through it. And what do you know? Next article here we've got. So it talks about the orbits of the precession of Mercury and stuff, but prediction of planet Vulcan, nice to know, but it's not relevant in the topics for us. But then it jumps straight to Einstein, which is what we've just done. Einstein's special relativity, and then you get to general relativity in 1915. We've just spoke about this now, but again, pretty pictures. General theory of relativity. The first great success was an accurate prediction of Mercury's orbit. Woohoo! The theory also predicts the existence of black holes and gravitational waves, which we've just spoke about. Although Einstein himself often struggled to understand them. Now, I don't know where the citation for that is, but if Einstein doesn't understand it, you can bet your bottom dollar that nobody else in physics understands it either. Because if Einstein didn't understand it to the best part, all sorts of nonsense can then spew from that, which is basically what's happening. Just 1 second, I've just got to let these dogs out. 1 second.
No stress, man. Yes, Sean, it is definitely a space and time. It's a fourth dimensional construct. That's why they got the metric tensors, so it can bend the space in time. That's why it's called space and time.
I've heard loads of these so-called space experts, space and time. So you're wrong there, Sean, mate. You dummy.
Exactly. They always talk about space-time.
The metric tensor is based on space and time warping in different dimensions. That's why it's in a fourth dimensional mathematical construct, Sean. Remember, Sean's the same guy that doesn't understand when he says why doesn't propane stay in a bucket trying to tell me gravity's supposed to hold it down? So he's got nothing to talk about when it comes to gravity at all.
Sean, I'm going to say this to you once, and from now on, Sean, there is no other topic that ever needs to come back your way other than this one issue. If you can ever come back with a gas law that supports the directionality of gas, then maybe you can qualify back into this conversation. But unless you can find me a gas law that gives directionality to gas and contradicts the current gas law, which states that there's a free expansion of gas in all directions without any bias whatsoever, then there is no way back into this topic for you, Sean. You are too stupid. Exactly. We have something called the free expansion of gas law. It is a non-directionality to gas. You guys insist that the atmosphere has got weight, which means that if you're stood there, you've got more molecules hitting you on the top of your head because there's a downward directionality of atmosphere pressing on you than you have on the underside of your arms or the underside of your legs, your groin area. But the reality is the pressure is the same all the way around. But if there's a downward directionality, it has to be more pressure on the top because that's the weight of the atmosphere pushing down on you. But in real terms, because we live in a gradient, and we both agree that we live in a gradient, don't we? We definitely live in a gradient. There should be a slight change in pressure as you gain in elevation. So as per your own model, the gradient's existence means that the higher you go, your head, the less pressure there is there. But in your model, you say that the atmosphere's got weight. So that means it's pressing down on you, which means that you should have more pressure pressing on your head because the atmosphere is pushing down on you. But in real world, because we live in a gradient, we know that that's not actually true. If you put your arm out and you have an open palm and you have your palms, doesn't matter whether you put your palm down or your palm up. If you put your palm facing down so that the back of your hand is pointing up, on your model, because you say that the atmosphere has got weight to it, you should have more pressure pressing on the back of your hand. But also, in total contradiction, you say that the pressure gets less as you gain in elevation. Well, the bottom side of your hand that's pointing the ground is at it's less elevation than the top of your hand. Therefore, it has more pressure on it because it's it's deeper in the density gradient, the pressure gradient. So it's the total opposite of what your atmospheric pressure pressing down on your argument is, because your atmosphere is supposed to put more pressure on the top. But in real world, it's obviously less, isn't it? So unless you can get around that, Sean, with a supporting gas law and a supporting experiment that demonstrates that it's the opposite way around to atmospheric pressure, which presses from the top down, you're going to have to accept that you don't know what you're talking about.
Physics. I just got to correct in Physics 101. Gravity has no effect on the direction of gas.
Why would you expect it to have it in the first place, Sean? Is it because gravity is a force in your nonsense? We've just been through how gravity is not a force. It was superseded a long time ago. Yet you're still here preaching that gravity is a force. Are you really going to be that stupid to do that in the chat whilst we're talking about how the current position in physics supersedes that and it's clear for everybody to go and see? Yet you're going to still chant in chat. Really?
I mean,
Anthony Sean's that thick, you don't realise he's thick.
Yeah, he's so dumb. He thinks pouring sulfur hexafluoride in a fish tank, you don't need a container lid to keep that sulfur hexafluoride in because it will stay there indefinitely. That's how dumb the guy is.
His stick is too short. Thanks, man. Everything he says, he's just debunking himself.
Dude, Cerulean photography debunks your claim that gas go down, go boom boom, mate. Also, one of my first videos ever on my channel showing Cerulean optics. It shows the gas has behavior. It shows it can go in all directions. Just like in pouring helium and it goes up, it still disperses around in all directions. Just like in pouring sulfur hexafluoride, it pulls down and disperses into the available space. It's called the arrow of time, Sean. It takes differences in time to disperse. It doesn't do it instantly, like as in let me pour it and it just spreads out like a explosion. That's just you being very ignorant.
It would if there was no atmosphere, though. If it was the case that we lived in a vacuum and you did that, it would do exactly that. It would immediately displace.
Because there's pressure around it. There's pressure around it.
Yeah, there's air already around us. It's like pouring water into water. It's going to take time before it immerses, right?
Look what happens when I did my Tide video. When I took the hot water and the cold water, I put the one side, I put a blue dye and the red dye on the other side. You saw how it mixed, but it took time to mix. It's exactly the same because there's already pressure around.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
But what I will say, Sean, you are equally as stupid as what Fight the Flat Earth is, because you both make the same nonsense arguments, and you completely ignore the current position in physics. You completely ignore that position that you both push for hasn't been the case since World War One. So you're both as equally as stupid as each other.
I'll have to disagree with you. Sean is the stupidest.
Two shot plants, tuna sandwich.
No, I think it's worse.
Bag of Spanos.
Sean is
I think it's
really
worse
stupid.
for Fight the Flat Earth.
He's really
It's worse
worse.
for Fight the Flat Earth because if he was actually taught, if he did do a physics degree, which he claims he did, if he actually did a physics degree, he's worse than Sean Hawkins because he knows that gravity is not a force because he was taught it.
Yeah, but that would
if he
that
didn't
would
do
just
the
dishonesty though. Because
but that makes it worse.
Yeah, that makes it worse because he knows the answer. I remember the first debate ever I had with Sean Hawkins where we talked about thermodynamics and gas behavior, where he comes and tells me Earth is classified, as an open system and it doesn't let matter through its boundaries.
Apart from rockets.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't understand. You can classify something as an open or closed system mathematically. It doesn't make it physically open or closed.
No.
And he should know this if he studied physics.
Yeah. You can look up articles that say that there's tons and tons and tons of hydrogen and helium lost to space every day.
Mm-hmm.
Sean wants to debate you, Anthony.
Okay. There's no point talking to either Sean or Fight the Flat Earth because it's not a debate topic. You just don't know your current science. That's all.
Yeah.
That's the end of the debate.
I think Sean should rather hide his head now, as he's been shown to be a lying twat who manipulates images to try suit his point. And while he does it, he still shows there was actual parallax because he had to manipulate the image to get them to line up. So showing it was parallax. Well done.
Yeah. Anyway, let's push on because I want to try and get done in the next 15 minutes, right?
Oh yeah, it's 15 minutes left. Yeah, let's do that.
So we've got 1915 general relativity, right? Mm-hmm. Now, there's a few more entries in here after 1915. You've got the quantum mechanics element. So you've got gravitation. Hang on, where is it? I can't find it now. It's not there. I thought it was there, but I've not looked at this document for a long time. But anyway, let's fast forward to the 1990s, because this is where we start talking about LIGO. Now, the thing is, LIGO would not exist if Einstein didn't supersede Newton. There would be no point in building LIGO at a cost of upwards of $3 billion if it didn't supersede Newton. If it was running alongside of it or refined it in some way, it wouldn't even need to exist because it wouldn't need to be proven that these things existed. But the reality is it's not even measuring anything to do with Newtonian principles anyway. That LIGO detecting the claim of gravitational lensing in any gravitational what's it called? The movement of the medium. Detecting gravitational waves. The gravitational waves didn't even exist in Newton. Mm-hmm. They weren't part of his nonsense. So the fact that this exists is the proof that Newton did not, or Einstein did not supersede Newton in any way. It was fundamentally changed.
Exactly.
Now,
and this is why they came up with gravitational pooling as well. Pockets of gravity.
I mean, I'm eating my tea now while I'm doing this, and this is like, if I called this instead of calling it my tea or my dinner, if I called it my gravitational dinner, instantly it supports your nonsense. So you're going to accept that I'm eating my dinner because I've put gravitational tea in front of it, right? But if I just say I'm eating my dinner or my tea, it just means that I'm eating my tea. Mm-hmm. But that word gravitational in front of it, it's got mystery. It's got mysteriousness to it. It's got fanciness to it that everybody wants to believe in, right? So it sounds credible. Bottom line is, it's whatever LIGO's doing, it's got nothing to do with Newtonian gravitation. It wasn't part of his nonsense. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's the point. So what I've just demonstrated over these two topics, these two articles, is if you go to Google or Yahoo in this case, and you search for chronology of gravity, you only need these two documents to be up to speed with the current position in physics, to be able to bat off these idiots. And then the bottom line is, you realize that there is no conversation, there is no dispute, there is no discussion, there is no debate. The bottom line is, if you know your current physics, you know that gravity is an optical phenomenon that's more akin to refraction than it is to an acceleration caused by a force that's not a force that you can think of as a force. It's an optical phenomena. It's refraction. It's literally.
So it's not physical. Yeah, so it's not physical. Exactly.
Yeah. And we don't calculate the acceleration of things on the horizon, like boats refracting, with a force of newtons, do we? We say that they're accelerating because of refraction, and we never even calculate it. We never calculate the apparent acceleration, and that's what the current science tells you. Current science tells you it's an apparent acceleration. It's not created by it's not causing a force. It's just an apparent. It's a bit of refraction. That's all it is. And if you know that, you don't have to talk to these idiots anymore. You just got to laugh at them because they're lying to you. And it's up to you to work it out. If you don't work it out, it's on you.
Yeah, exactly.
If you do work it out, you just laugh at them because there is no conversation. There is no debate. They're just lying.
Yeah,
the nonsense. And that's the end of it.
Yeah, I just want to quickly read the super chat. Thank you, Face Reality, for your $5 super chat, mate. Really, really appreciate it. It says, sorry, Sean. There's nobody living antipodal 7,917 miles beneath your feet. Boats, trains, and planes aren't cruising upside down relative to you. Exactly, 100% fact. Thank you so much, Face Reality. Really appreciate it. Notice that you cannot do this observation to say anybody is antipodal. There's no such observation in reality.
Exactly. I mean, if there was such thing as space, they would be able to take a photo of something on the top of the ball and something at the bottom of the ball at the same time, antipodal to each other. You'd be able to do that. You'd be able to take photos of boats on the side of the globe. You know what I mean? Crazy.
It's crazy. But yeah, at the end of the day, exactly, Sleeping, gravity is just optical. So they can just false equivocate it to call it a force of attraction, which it can't be because it's just optical, and it can't be fictitious because for it to be fictitious you require physical force to help it to arise. So what is gravity at the end of the day? There is no gravity.
Optical phenomena.
Yeah, there is no gravity.
It's the optical phenomena of the dome flexing as a result of convection currents.
There we go.
And I'm saying that intentionally so that you can go misrepresent and misquote me. The point I'm trying to make is that we see an apparent acceleration caused by refraction of boats, and they tell us that apparent acceleration is the same in the sky, to a lesser extent, but it's an apparent acceleration, and we don't measure that in newtons, do we? We don't measure it as a force. We calculate stuff when we beg the question, and we do all sorts of nonsense. But at no point does anybody anywhere talk about the force required to explain away the apparent orbits of Mercury or apparent retrograde motion. We don't talk about it in the context of forces. And because we don't talk about it in the context of forces, that means that gravity does not create a force. It just creates an optical effect. And if you know that phrase, bye-bye gravity, bye-bye Sean Hawkins, bye-bye Fight the Flat Earth, bye-bye most of the dumbass ball earthers like Glober's mom, who just parrots what she is, Fight the Flat Earth, saying, Craig, I want to see your
Glober's mom is actually just a white knight channel for Fight the Flat Earth. That's all she actually is.
And her avatar, have you seen her little motif thing? It's with the globe in the woman's head and the globe in the baby's head. It just cries out indoctrinated, doesn't it?
Or stooge. Set up on purpose.
Yeah.
Well, I was getting trolled the other day by Glober Mum, and then Sean Hawkins debunked her.
Wow, then you know it's a bad argument.
I don't believe that. Sean Hawkins has never debunked anybody.
I kid you not.
Wow. You know this stuff. Oh yeah. By the way, Michael, Wes Wally is bringing out a video soon saying you got the wrong turbines.
Oh, no doubt.
While you show the actual turbines on the actual site, while you're there on the board, everything, he still says it's wrong. This is how desperate these guys are.
It's easy to say you've got wrong ones when you live at opposite side of the plane.
They did the same with Ranty when he did his turbine observation. He said he was looking at the wrong ones. Whether he was, I don't know, but
I'm not interested in Wally whatsoever. Like, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wally by name.
That's it, by nature.
Oh, well, I see Original D-Rose came in, and I didn't say hi to Dislord or Ryan. It's good to see you guys.
So I guess we can conclude, because we're getting on to the hour mark and I wanted to be done by an hour.
Yeah.
We can conclude by literally saying that if you guys still preach that either gravity is a force or gravity creates a force, then you're not up to speed with the current position in physics, and if Craig, I've got a challenge for you. Show us your certificate on screen, because I don't believe you got one. I don't believe that somebody could go through the education system, be told that gravity is not a force, be told that it's Einsteinian, and be told about quantum mechanics and the overlap between Einstein and quantum mechanics. I don't believe somebody could go through the education system, come out the other side with a certificate with your name on it, saying that congratulations, you got a degree in what, physics? That's what you claim.
Well, I'm under this impression, right? If you're going to fall back on having these qualifications and tell people that they're stupid and you are qualified, you have to show it, otherwise you've got no argument. Like when we asked Phil Bell to show his and he refused.
I just going to say, Eric Heller's lying, guys. I've never heard gravity as optical before. What do you think equivalence principle is, Eric? You bloody moron. Oh, really?
How many times?
How's it going, fellas? What's up, Flat?
Good in yourself, mate.
So let's just be clear for Fight the Flat Earth. Show us your certificate, otherwise Hitchens Razor applied. Fight the Flat Earth.
Hitchens Razor, exactly.
Yeah, that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. I'm calling it. I don't believe you've had a physics degree, Craig. And if you did get one, you got a third, and you weren't paying attention when it came to the important topic on which you ridicule people for a living. Show us it. If you haven't got it, Craig, fine, but admit it. If you have got it, show it. I don't care if it's at your mum's. Mine's at my mum's too. It's in a certificate thing on the wall. I can take a picture of it. In fact, I found my graduation video as well recently. So I can show you my graduation, my actual moment where I walked up on stage and took my certificate. But I want to see yours, Craig, because I don't believe you've got one. I don't believe anybody could go through the Institute of Education and not be told, come out the other side with a qualification.
Yeah, but how do you pass? How do you get an actual degree in something you get wrong 90% of the time?
Well, you got to recite the answer that they want you to give, don't they? But
exactly.
You can't go through the physics degree without referencing gravity at some point. And for him to pass it, he would have had to have said that Einstein is the current position. He will literally have had to have said that, because that's what it teaches you. I'm calling it, Craig. You show me that you got a degree, otherwise there's no more conversation with you. Either you're as bad as Sean Hawkins and you can be instantly dismissed applying Hitchens Razor. You claim it, but unless you prove it, it's nonsense.
Hey, Adam.
It's an online degree from a Tunes webpage.
Look, nobody with a legitimate accolade for physics tries to, as a grown man, squeeze into an extra small shirt. So let's just end that right here. Fight the tight shirt.
Hey, Adam, how's it going, man?
Evening, guys.
Hi, Adam Meakin. How you doing, dude?
Not bad, gents. Not bad. Nice presentation, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched his graduation. He made me watch. He makes you watch these things.
Yeah, but all I get told is how skinny I was.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a smaller gown than would be required today.
You're horrible. You're only bitter because Notts Forest got battered by Liverpool at the weekend. That's your payback.
Notts Forest didn't play anyone. They don't exist.
Okay, Nottingham Forest.
There you go.
Notts Forest.
Well, what do you reckon, Adam? What do you reckon? Do you think it's possible that somebody could go through a chemistry degree and not get taught about, I don't know, something fundamentally basic? Let's go with the composition. I don't know what they do in a chemistry degree, but something really simple. Is it possible that a gentleman of Craig's caliber could go through a physics undergrad, pass the course at the end of it, and come out by telling everybody that gravity is a force as per Newton, or it creates a force of which there's no science that supports that? Do you reckon that's possible? I don't.
Well, the only way it's possible is if they're a liar and they're denying what they were taught.
Yeah, exactly. But Adam, how would you become a chemist if you didn't learn about volume?
No.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And if you do physics, you learn about volume, and volume requires to know it's a container.
Well, chemistry is
It's physics, yeah. It's physics, exactly.
Chemistry is the only one that's got lots of empirical data and evidence for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The nonsense that these guys push as physics or science, they haven't got any. Almost none of it's physical or empirical.
Tell me, what's physics about astronomy?
None.
Nothing, exactly.
There's no physics in astronomy.
Exactly. And
that's what's interesting about George Musa. He's an astrophysicist, right? That means he's a non-science person. But he'll let you think he's a science person.
It's crazy.
It's a bit like saying, like, in the same way that he says gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. This is George Musa speaking about himself. I'm an astrophysicist. I'm not a scientist, but you can think that I'm a scientist. That's essentially what he's saying.
Flatzoid,
Yeah.
will you pull that screenshot up I took of Sean?
Oh, okay. Then.
I just want everybody in chat to see who the guy who's been in here telling us we're all stupid, what he really looks like.
Is it in
My
debate?
mum's wearing my mum's tea cozy.
He looks like he looks like an old school Russian crackhead.
Have you ever seen that Russian guy that was he was known for jumping in ice cold water and drinking vodka at the same time?
Yeah, and he died. He eventually died. Yeah.
Yeah, he eventually. So a lot of people were saying where he's gone for a while. I hope he's okay. So saying, "Hey, I am alive. I've just not been doing much recently." And they are 3 days after he did the video showing that he was still alive. He did a dive in some freezing cold water, and basically he died. He drowned himself accidentally. But it's just the irony of how much Sean does look like a Russian vodka addict. He does.
Yeah, well, when was it? Like 2 days ago, he said, "Oh, it's sad when it's end of the day," and he shows his pot bag empty. That's all he does, just smoke pot all day.
But the only good thing about Sean, compare Sean directly with Five, because they both tell lies, they both push bullshit. They're comparable. They're both as bad as each other.
If you did have a degree, though, it would be an easy win. Somebody mentioned Phil Bell earlier. It's the same thing, you know. If you've got it, what's the problem with just, showing it?
Wouldn't you like be bragging about it? I'm willing to show it, I would if I had one anyway.
It's not that you brag about it. But if challenged on it, it's a very simple remedy and an easy win.
Look, put it this way: if you keep bragging about your qualifications, you would expect it to be backed up. You would expect someone at eventually say, "Okay, I'm tired of you bragging about your qualifications. Back it up because we don't believe you." So
most people I know that are of a certain standard of education never even mention it.
Exactly, they don't brag.
They don't even mention it.
No.
The most you get is what university did you go and did you enjoy it? And it just doesn't matter. When you do brag about it, the guy that's bragging about how much money he's got normally doesn't have any money. The guy that's bragging about what car he's got in the garage normally doesn't have a car in the garage. Well, the guy that brags about having a physics degree probably hasn't got a physics degree either.
I mean, it's easy to say he was in the Navy and he could have just been a potato peeler. You know what I mean?
All submariners know that you don't vary and manipulate gravity to cause the submarine to rise and dive.
No,
you flood it with water and then you pump it out and replace it with gas, and that's how they rise and fall. But it's got nothing to do with gravity in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, they got their ballast tanks for a reason, not a gravity tank.
Yeah, they would have a big. Like how the Russians are always like described as having the red button, right? Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. But everyone's got an image of a Russian like Putin pressing the red button to start a nuclear war, right? Because that's what we all got taught as kids. Russia have got the red button, haven't they? Right? And we should all be scared. Yeah, I've got this image that submarines have got this big red lever on the wall, and it's a gravometer. And it's like a potentiometer, but it's a gravometer. And the more you pull it down one way, and the more you push it up the other way, the sub will gravitationally get more attracted towards the Earth as you pull it down, and less attracted towards the Earth as you move it up. And you're causing that gravitational acceleration by moving the gravity potentiometer on the wall.
But you know what's I mean, let's look at the gravimeters that people use for mining and stuff. It just picks up density deposits. So
apart from icebergs.
But I'm talking about when you do it for mining. It picks up density deposits. It doesn't pick up gravitational attraction. You understand? So them doing false claims that it has to be gravity doing this because it picks up density. How do you know it's picking up gravity? You understand? It's just literally affirming the consequent based on a belief system that has never been proven in existence. How do you know it's not something else?
You know what? I remember watching. What's that guy's? Tony. What's his name? Tony something.
Yeah.
PhD Tony.
PhD
Tony. Somebody came in and asked him a question, and they basically said, "What's the difference between you walking around the field with your gravimeters and a supermarket clerk barcode scanning with the machine that goes beep?" And she said, "Well, how is it any different?" And he said, "Oh, of course it's different because waffle, 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 waffle." And she went away confused. But there is literally no difference between what he thinks he's doing with a gravimeter and the cashier that's pressing the same button but getting a very similar effect. One reads a barcode, it tells you a price. The other one does something. You have no idea what it's measuring, if it's measuring anything at all. But it measures variations, and all that is measuring how the difference in acceleration over 50, 60, 70 scans each time you press the button. Well, it's the same as pressing the barcode scanner on a machine. It just goes beep, and you get a result, and then one says 99 pence, the other one says 6.44 or whatever it says. And then there's literally no difference between a supermarket cashier and what PhD Tony walks around the field with. But he'll let you think that he's measuring gravity because there's a sense of specialness to Tony for that one, isn't there? If he thinks that he's doing something important for science or for detecting mineral deposits, he's going to be proud of that. But there's no pride associated when you compare that to a cashier in a supermarket. But fundamentally, they are exactly the same. You press a button, you get a number, you get a result, you do something. There's no difference between the two of them. And that day, that woman that asked that question, and he sent her away totally confused into thinking that he was doing science. And he isn't.
Exactly.
All he's doing is pressing a button, and he has no idea what he's measuring. Same as Bob Nobel.
But can I ask you, what is the thing they manipulate in the gravimeter? I don't know. Maybe the medium.
That's the reason why I said it's the same as Bob Nodell, because he has no idea why he's getting variations in the drop rates of balls or whatever it is that, however his gravimeter works, because there's 2 or 3 different types apparently. Who cares? Whether I've got it right or wrong, who cares? What matters is how are you going to prove that it's the thing that you're measuring? And obviously with gravity not being a force, it doesn't matter whether it's drop tests of balls or whether it's doing something else. Unless you manipulate your presumed cause, you haven't got the foggiest clue what the problem is. It's the same as Bob. This Bob.
You dropped your balls.
Yeah, but think about it. To drop this ball, what do they manipulate? They manipulate the medium it's in. If you're manipulating gravity,
so you're not manipulating anything.
if you're manipulating, so you're not manipulating gravity to say it's gravity's the cause. You manipulate the density, the medium ratio, and then claim it's gravity.
No, it's supposed to be within a semi-vacuum. But this is what McToon presented to me as evidence. I said, see, you've got a dropometer, and wherever you take it, sometimes you get different rates of drop. Fantastic. All done. But that's all you've got. That's all you have.
Well, it's not though, is it? Because you've also got, when you go to a different location, you've got a different pressure. You've got a different temperature. You've got a different humidity.
Prove that that's got anything to do, even that. Prove that is either the error rate or has got anything to do with your dropity variance.
Exactly. It's the same fallacy that Bob did. He made a claim about what he was measuring, and then he shot himself in the foot, which is why we all attack Bob. Because he should have said, we have no idea what it's measuring. And then they'll say, well, is it not the default position then? And then he could say, well, no, because unless you manipulate it scientifically, you have no idea what it's measuring. And you can't prove shit with that. And that's the true position with Bob. Well, it's the same with gravimeters and dropometers and all the other stuff that they claim has got the word gravi in there somewhere. None of them are manipulating anything. They're just measuring something. And then they go, oh, well, it's gravity, isn't it?
Well, then I'm going to ask the same question. What is gravity?
Exactly.
Well, they'll never define that, will they?
That's why I was flippant and call it a dropometer, because that's what you're measuring. To invoke the title gravimeter would be to imply you're measuring gravity. First, you're going to need to define it and tell me how you're measuring it. What are you measuring it with? Yeah. So to claim, you've got a dropometer. That's all you've got.
Exactly. That's what I said. They just do They just do affirming the consequent biases. That's all they do. It's the same as me saying, I see the sun come up every day, therefore it's me that causes the sun to come up every day.
Yep.
So sorry guys, we're gonna have to end the show. Any closing statements?
That was no. I like that. I like it was good.
I got a few.
Go on.
I'm kidding, of course. I'm just kidding.
I just thought, no, brilliant presentation, Anthony.
I agree.
Yeah, you had a few haters in the chat, like, but they were taken care of.
Yeah, but the reason they hate you though is because they don't
because
like truth.
Exactly, because he's right. They hate it because it's right. Exactly.
How dare you?
But yeah, just gotta say thank you guys.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to be here.
I'd say good presentation, Tony.
Yeah.
The learning I always take from it is what Tony was saying is I think you said it a number of times. You don't need to argue with these Muppets. Sadly, at best, you need to educate them in their own rhetoric, and their own rhetoric will often destroy the position they're trying to hold to be as anti-flat earthers. So just that summary Tony's giving of where things are is fantastic weapon for people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, but that's what I told Tony, come on and chat. I think it's going to be much better to talk this way so that people can actually get the information, because if you try and debate it with these anti-flat earthers, you don't get the information out because there's just no debate. As soon as you can start just talking like we know, and just talking about it, the information gets out there. People are able to disseminate and see what's what. Because you just don't get the right information out there if you quote-unquote debating the anti-flat earthers.
They're not there to debate.
No, they aren't.
No, you're a masochist, and I respect you for it. But that is fundamentally what you demonstrate. There's no meeting of minds for improved learning. It's about trying to bullshit your way to be an anti-flat earther to try and prove your rhetoric, and that's why tonight's good, because it shows.
Damn it! I thought it was the other way around.
Come on.
Hey, what's up, Adam?
Evening, Dave.
What you said. With that being said, I just want to tell Craig to not give up, because even though he's doing a terrible, unsatisfactory job fighting the flat Earth, what his name stands for, you tell him not to give up fighting the tight shirt, because there is hope, light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
But he needs to take that FE off of there and just put TS. FT-TS. That should be his new acronym.
I'm more than happy for him to carry on, because there's nothing better than a poster boy for the anti-flat earth side being a convicted violent criminal like Craig McNeil. What a great icon to present their side. A man that denies his own science.
So yeah, guys, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. I might be doing a debate tomorrow. Still haven't heard back from them, but it will probably be like 2 a.m. by me again when that debate's on. But I'll still have a normal stream tomorrow night.
What is this on MDD? Is this on MDD?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for them to get back to me. I don't know, because they asked me if I wanted to debate, and I said, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But they haven't got back to me yet.
They always see the last minute, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, Flat, I got a question. I saw the thing that you did, the short you did on the spectrometer. There's a lot of comments by the anti-flat earthers saying that you were holding in your hand that had the containment in order to be able to measure the light wave or whatever you was demonstrating. They tried to say you had a spectrometer.
No, I had a spectrometer because I work with spectrometry.
But they said thank you. They claimed you didn't know what you were talking about, and what you had was a spectrophotometer, spectrophotometer, or something like that. They gave these long dissertations.
A spectrometer, and a spectrometer. A spectrometer is what I use, where you put it on, it opens the flap, and it uses the containment to take measurements of the different wavelengths, so it knows which pigments is in the paint. Now, when they use a spectrograph, it's the same thing. They use the containment and they measure based on the radiation of the light waves, so they can get to know what the compositions are of the so-called planets and whatever. It's the same thing. You
Yeah, but
still
to be
need
fair-
containment. It's still contained.
To be fair, though, when you did that video, I saw it said on the sticker spectrophotometer. Now, I don't know the difference between the two.
It's the
I don't
same
really
thing.
care.
There's a
Yeah,
slight
but
difference.
they made a like professor that's not a Professor Phil Bell said
Yeah.
that you appear to have a spectrometer in your hand.
No
not a
shit.
you appear to have a spectrophotometer in
Anthony
your
called.
hand.
Yeah,
There is
Anthony
a
called.
slight
He
difference
knows what I'm
if you want
talking
it
about. He knows what I'm
clarified.
talking about.
So a spectrometer uses a narrow bandwidth of light,
Exactly.
and a spectrophotometer will measure full colour spectrum.
But they were distinguishing
they
between
both-
the two.
but you see, they're
Same
missing.
principle.
Yeah, they're
It's the
missing
same
the point. They're missing the point. It's the same principle, and they both require containment.
Don't tell me they were majoring on a minor again, were they?
It's just they can't accept the argument's wrong. This all comes back to because they're trying to attack David Weiss for saying for spectrometry you require containment. So I just said yes, you do require containment. I work with spectroscopy. I mean, it's part of my job. It's how it works. You can talk to a PhD, John D. Him as well. He'll say you require containment for it. But these anti-flat earthers are so dishonest, they can't accept you require it because their whole argument is, oh, you don't require it, you see, so they won't accept it.
Difference
Exactly.
is he's got a degree or a doctorate in it, and it's spectroscopy.
Spectroscopy, exactly.
Yeah, I looked it up. Flatzoid. It's a
Spectroscopy.
spectrometer from about 360 to 760. Like I said, the spectrophotometer measures full
It's exactly the same principle. That's all. It's exactly the same thing. The one just is a wider range.
They are so dishonest, blatant liars,
Yeah.
And then what it does is
liars.
somebody like me and Anthony that can't differentiate or know the difference. We get on there and we don't know whose side to look at, so we stay neutral. But from the knowledge of knowing the history and the innate temperament of these people, I just had a feeling they were lying because I know you're not that foolish to put a demonstration up on there and make a mockery of yourself. So, but if they try to make it seem like that on their comments,
Yeah,
they're
but
ridiculous.
it's their problem. Debatable D, yes, it definitely requires containment. Let me tell you this way, I can hold that spectrometer this way and it won't pick up anything if I'm not against the panel. Because it needs to be contained. It has to contain the light.
It's not contained what you're doing, then you're sampling everything.
Exactly.
It
gotta
makes
be-
no sense.
It's called controlling the variable.
It's just called the thing you're freaking sampling. You
Yeah.
want it and nothing else. It's the kind of logic.
It's
It has
stupid.
to be contained.
Yeah, it's like
You know
like
when you
taking
taste,
it's like
somebody
taking,
says to you, taste this drink, right? What do? You contain a bit in your mouth. Why you taste it? You're sampling something. You've got to take a bit of it. You don't want to take a bit of it and everything else and sample that, do you?
yeah, if I order a glass of Coke, I want a glass of Coke. I don't want Fanta and cream soda and Iron Brew and Pepsi. I want a glass of Coke. But anyway, I gotta say bye, guys. We did go a bit over the time. I do appreciate you coming on, Sleeping Warrior. I do appreciate everybody else coming.
Well, I just want to know how many people knew about that document started before. Did anybody know about them, or did nobody?
About the
Did anybody in the Hangout now? Did anybody know that they existed?
I don't think
No.
they did.
No, what existed?
The documents he showed. The documents he showed.
No.
Yeah, remember Phil Bell when you asked him, he was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That was it. Right, no.
Yeah.
So as you said, Richard, sorry man, I timed out the wrong person. It was a slip.
So yeah, guys.
You know, sorry, it is. Sorry,
Yeah, man.
wrong
See you
dude.
later, dude.
I did
Good
the
night,
wrong
Flats.
person.
Good night,
Sorry.
brother.
Cheers, Anthony.
Cheers,
Take care, mate.
guys.